Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news from Seth Meyers. Former President Trump released a statement amid the deteriorating situation in Afghanistan, and yeah, he's enjoying this. Colbert, pretty weird to blame Biden for withdrawing troops when this summer he was claiming credit for it. Colbert, so you can't put all the blame for a debacle you helped set the stage for. That's like Andrew Lloyd Webber calling Cats a terrible movie. You wrote a musical with no plot. How did you think it was going to end? Fallon, you can tell things aren't good for Biden because today he said, you know, maybe the election was stolen. That is a great joke. Fallon writers are just on point. Fallon again. Trump made a peace deal with the Taliban to end the war, and now after Biden's withdrawal, they're back in power. So on the bright side, it's nice to have a bipartisan screw-up. Seth, I have a hard time believing Trump would have done it in a more orderly way, since nothing he ever did was orderly. He couldn't even withdraw from an umbrella in an orderly fashion. Colbert, so what's happening now is the responsibility of both parties and the American people who voted them in office. So children and convicts, you're off the hook. Also, thanks for watching. Now, I missed this story, but when I was prepping the show, I came across it. This is from July 20th. So in case you're like, why are you bringing this up today? We knew this a month ago. I only just saw it, but it's really interesting. This from Yahoo. Marc Maron is skeptical as to whether fellow podcaster Joe Rogan's reported $100 million Spotify deal is justified. Maron was on Tom Segura's podcast, and he said to Segura, you're different. You're your own guy. You're your own life, and you weren't one of the guys who rented out space in Joe's ass. They're like a human centipede in Austin. It's Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, and three middle acts. People are going to see that and say, look at Maron, he's bitter. Why wouldn't I be? $100 million for going, I don't know. Really? I don't know, man. That's a really interesting beef, if it is a beef. From NME.com, 2 days in a row, your home for comedy news. Producer of The Office UK, Ash Atala, has said that Ricky Gervais' jokes about his disability made him a little bit uncomfortable. Atala, who's worked on a producer on The It Crowd and People Just Do Nothing, both great shows, has used a wheelchair since contracting polio as a child. Gervais pointed out Atala's disability while accepting an award for The Office at the British Comedy Awards, calling him my little wheelchair friend, and saying he was just the same as Stephen Hawking without all the clever stuff. Reflecting on the event, Atala told The Times, I felt a little uncomfortable. There was a period of late 90s comedy with the likes of Ricky Gervais, Jimmy Carr, and Frankie Boyle where the game was see what you could get away with and then reverse intellectualize it. The jokes didn't bother me at the time, but they would if they happened now. I wouldn't allow so many jokes to be made about my wheelchair. I wouldn't want to be defined by that. Ricky Gervais has not yet responded for a comment. From Dobbler Online, when John Cleese took to Twitter to lament an issue that left him without a rental in Huntsville, Ontario, Canada. Close to 900 people replied, many offering suggestions or a place to stay. John Cleese tweeted, does anyone in Huntsville, Ontario have a nice place I can rent to live in while I make a film? Airbnb took our money, but now they say they've given our house to someone else. Why did they take the money then? Airbnb replied and said, hi, John. We're very sorry to hear about this and want to help you get this sorted. But in the meantime, he had some other options. The Cedar Grove Lodge nailed it. They said, we would love to host a new Fawlty Towers reboot. That's great. Another Twitter user said, wait, you're making a movie in Huntsville? Do you need any extras? I'm a super silly walker. That's a callback. Cleese did not divulge what he's working on, but IMDb says he's cast as Harry Hannigan in Cut the Painter, a film currently in pre-production. The plot summary of Cut the Painter is, when reclusive writer Harry Hannigan begins his retirement unannounced in a very large house in a small Canadian town, hint, hint, he's greeted by the arrival of his former writing partner Jack. Jack is a man who's on the run from his family after receiving a terminal diagnosis with nowhere else to stay. Harry begrudgingly agrees to take him in, an act of grace that doesn't come easily for him. The article says Cut the Painter will be released in Canada in September 2022. What about the rest of us? Cleese said, so many helpful suggestions. We'll follow them up. Thanks, Ontarians. From The Guardian, Michael Rapaport. I was trying to remember, is he actually a comedian, or like was he a comedian and became like actor guy that fights with everybody? And then I saw he played shows in New Jersey just last week, but Michael Rapaport does not want to lose his cool. And The Guardian writes, and for most of our otherwise pleasant and meandering visit over Zoom, he doesn't, until Kevin Durant's name came up back in April. Michael Rapaport tweeted screenshots of a private Instagram exchange, that's not cool, don't do that, with the Brooklyn Nets swingman that came after Michael Rapaport criticized one of Kevin Durant's post-game interviews. In it, the 11-time NBA All-Star Kevin Durant unleashes a fusillade of profane insults leaning on homophobic and misogynistic language as hard as he does undersized defenders on the low block. The Guardian's into this story, huh? Before invoking Rapaport's wife and challenging him to a fight. Durant explained, "Me and Mike talk crazier than this on the regular, and today he's ticked. My bad, Mike. Damn." Rapaport then replied with misogynistic language of his own. The NBA condemned the remarks as offensive and derogatory. Kevin Durant was forced to accept a $50,000 fine and issue a public apology. The writer says, "I ask if he's cut Kevin Durant a refund check yet. And holy hell does he hit the ceiling. Quote, F him and his disrespect and thinking he could tweet people and crap on them." I'm cleaning up the language. The 50 grand, that's part of his deal, you know? And anyway, it's like a normal person buying a 50-cent candy bar. Stop DMing people. This is not banter, Rapaport added. He misreported it. We're not effing friends. That's not the way I talk to friends. What? Then in a change of pace, stand-up comedy didn't seem like a worthwhile career choice until Eddie Murphy came along in the early 80s. Rapaport said, "I wanted to be him. I'm 13 years old, walking around the streets in a white leather jacket, no shirt with gold chains. I looked insane on the school bus. Growing up, I didn't want to be Sylvester Stallone in Rocky or John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. I wanted to be Rocky, to be Tony Manero, to be the characters." What was his comedy like then? Just attitude, just New York crap talking, and effing with the audience. Today's daily comedy news is brought to you by Palace Intrigue. You've heard me talk about this. That's the 5-minute look at what's going on with the royal family. Harry, always in trouble. Everyone's always mad at Meghan. Everybody's always like, "Oh, Kate, she's so wonderful." Charles wears kilts. I don't know what's going on. I do know what's going on. I write it. Why did I say I don't know what's going on? That's a lie. I just lied to you. I know what's going on. I write the damn thing. Palace Intrigue, wherever you get your shows. Did you see John McGinley's on Brooklyn Nine-Nine? Dr. Cox from Scrubs, he's awesome. The AV Club says McGinley said he was offered the part of Frank O'Sullivan back in February, and after reading the scripts, he was in. He said, "I called back the series co-creator Dan Gore, and I told him nothing cries the character Frank more than Archie Bunker meets Yosemite Sam. It was too delicious of a character to pass up." In one episode, the good one, he shared with Rosa and Jake that only 3 things mattered to him: his ma, the NYPD, and Billy Joel. His love for the city's police officers drives his agenda in that episode and beyond. This guy only has to see blue. That's the only color he sees. That gives so much fuel to Raymond Holt, played by Andre Braugher, who's wonderful. Rosa and Jake. Frank's undying loyalty to the brave officers of the NYPD is quickly established, but he takes it one step beyond with proclamations such as, "I would oppose marching because marching leads to rioting and rioting leads to looting." McGinley praises Gore's handling of the slippery slope, saying any insensitivity here would lead to a total mess. Dan was keenly aware of any traps they may have fallen into during the past 7 seasons. The writers made Frank his own worst enemy. And from the New York Times, a popular comedy's return in France exposes growing divides. After 12 years, a French spy spoof movie featuring a clueless, racist, and sexist hero reemerges in a nation where laughter has become more complicated. He's a cross between James Bond and Archie Bunker. Sounds interesting, no? A French spy who always saves the day and gets the girl, but who's also a walking dinosaur spewing out sexist, racist, and other problematic views of the world. Okay, maybe not so much fun. Little known outside France, pardon my French, no pun, Hubert Bonacieux de la Bath, the clueless hero of the OSS 117 spy spoof movie series as part of France's pop culture. People quote from the films. Students at top universities debate his significance. The films represent a fading imperial power able to laugh at itself and at its own struggle to adapt to a changing world. So the new movie is called OSS 117 Red Alert in Black Africa. OSS 117 is a measure of how France has changed. The previous 2 movies came out in 2006 and 2009. No one was bugged by them. Now people are. Charles Le Goff, the author of The Philosophy of OSS 117, is a book about it. And he says when the first 2 movies came out, these debates didn't exist at all. They were limited to a very small minority, and most spectators were in agreement that it was a funny movie, and that it was even condemning prejudices. Now, the unifying nature of humor is being called into question. He's a character who resembles our fathers or grandfathers, manly and reassuring, but also rigid and sometimes ridiculous and resistant to change. He embodies a France that doesn't necessarily want to see the country advance with the social changes that frighten it. This time, his mission is to save a younger colleague, the incarnation of the sensitive, politically correct male, in a nameless country in, quote, Black Africa, an outdated term, yes. The spy answers the following when his boss asks him what he knows about Africa. He says, Africans are happy, nice, and they're good dancers. To beef up on his knowledge on the flight over, he reads Tintin in the Congo. Rafael Haddad is 64 and a fan of the series. He caught a matinee of the new movie, and he said, we laugh at the ideas that people shared back then about Africa, blacks, communism. We laugh at that. We used to be able to laugh at that. Now we laugh, but with more difficulty. And Merrick Langlois is 28. He saw the movie as well and said, racist jokes worked in the first films 15 years ago, but now in 2021, irony is not enough to make them work. That is your comedy news for today. Follow this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. If you like what I do, buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Daily Comedy News. Instagram at Daily Comedy News. Can't buy me a coffee there, but you could say hi. See you tomorrow.